All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Could I get you to do the,
I'm just going to do the name tag, it says pledge.
I do the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All righty. Next, we have the agenda approval. Has everybody had an opportunity to look over the agenda and see if they have any questions or anything on it?
That question.
Is that,
I'd like to make a suggestion. I was reading the minutes for June 15th and on our public hearing for the budget. As noted in the minutes, we never took any action. We had a lot of good comments.
well, we're gonna have a budget hearing. When's the budget
We had a
approved?
budget hearing.
Yeah, but when's it set for? We got 2 special meetings set up. Matter of fact, need to be sure everybody, what is the 2 meetings that you were telling me about? We were gonna set up as far as the SPLOST and the 2 meetings in the 1st of July.
Well, we have the first, if we decide on which budget today, then we do the first reading of the budget ordinance, which is not a vote. And then at the next meeting, we do the second reading, and that's when we vote. The millage rate and the SPLOST is going to be finalized at the next meeting.
Okay.
And the public hearing for the Cherokee County millage rate is at the next meeting.
That's fine. What I was going to suggest is a motion where we take the results of the public hearing and accept them and have them accommodated into our budget. Not that we'll decide yes or no we're going to do them, but just to acknowledge them and have them do the minutes and whatever. I mean, there was a whole list of things we talked
Yeah,
about.
and they were already put in there. I just made it more clear if you go through the budget, like the mulch was already in there, hold on, let me flip my notes
I
over.
think most of the stuff was in there, it was just under different titles.
Instead of keeping a part-time employee in with the regular employee, I made a separate category for a part-time seasonal maintenance employee, so that is added in there.
Did we do the garbage, the dumpsters?
Yes, and that is added in there as well. It was in there, but I made it a
A
separate.
bigger
Yeah.
number, yeah.
Mhm.
Did we, trying to think what was on the list, did we do money set aside for hiring part-time work?
Yes,
Did we do the housing?
no, I did not do housing, but that could either be, there was talk for like things such as potholes and down trees, and that can fall into the contingency category. I checked for that large category I have is contingencies. So trees that fall down unexpectedly, that can be taken care of that, although there is money in the budget as well for like routine maintenance and mulch and things of that nature.
So you're saying this should be an agenda item? I mean, y'all have moved into discussion about not the agenda.
Well, I think we've got everything pretty well covered on the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, tell me, Tina, so all the things that Lamar talked about are in the budget?
Mhm. With the exception of the dilapidated housing.
That's the only thing?
Yeah. I can go through it once we get,
No, we
before
don't
we
need to
do
go
the
through it.
first reading of the budget ordinance.
I mean, we didn't vote on anything is why, and so you went ahead and did it even though we didn't vote on it, basically.
Well, it was in there anyway, I just clarified.
Yeah, it was already in the budget, you just changed some of the wording so it made it more obvious what was.
Okay.
Because I just made it clear, so when we go to before we do the, decide anything with the budget, of course, I'll go through and show everybody in your packet where I had to make those adjustments.
Yeah. So is there room for us to do this, whatever the housing thing was?
We can take from the reserve or contingency, so yes, there is money.
Okay, I'm good, as long as we covered all the things that were on the list to be considered, and I didn't know they were hidden in there. Good job.
Any further discussion about approval of the agenda? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve.
We have a second. Motion second to approve the agenda. All in favor, let it know by raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Okay, next we have the approval of the minutes from June 6th. That being section 4.
And just to show y'all, I did learn stuff at training. Something I didn't realize was that in the minutes, we're also supposed to include not just the date and time, but the location, because these are like a forever record. So if someone wants to know where a meeting was held and for some reason we held it somewhere else. So I just showed off what I learned and added the extra little details on there.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as mailed. Unless there's any.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the June 6, 2017 council meeting.
Michael,
We have a second?
I think you have a question.
Yes.
I was voting.
Can you vote?
It's more talk. That's what I-
Okay.
6th or 15th?
The sixth.
We got both, we got two, the 6th and the 15th. So we're dealing with the 6th now. So all in favor, let me know, raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, next we have a vote to approve minutes of the 2015, June 15th, 2017 work session. It'll be 6B, 4, it'll be 4B. So we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as mailed if anybody wants to enter it.
I second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the minutes as mailed.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor, let me know. We'll raise your right hand. Okay. Next, we have the department reports from City Clerk Tina Monaghan.
Okay. Financial report. We have ended the 2017 fiscal year as of June 13th. Bills for that will continue to come in throughout the month, so I will not have a final tally as to where we stand until closer to the end of the month. All invoices that include the month of June need to be credited toward that fiscal year. I will try to have a reconciled report of revenue and expenditures to you at the next meeting, but if not, I will email it as soon as it becomes available. The goal is to make sure that we do all necessary adjustments so that the auditor does not have to do it for us, which has been the case in the past couple of years. Maintenance. Mr. Fawcett is on vacation this week, so if there's anything that you see that needs to be addressed, let me know, and I'll add it to the list for next week when he returns. The fan was installed in the maintenance building. Initially, the plan was to go with 2 fans, but the electrician found a single, more powerful fan that has been working great. Mr. Fawcett has noticed a huge difference in the temperatures in the building. Gravel was delivered to refresh the nature trail parking lot, but Mr. Fawcett has not had time to spread it due to rain and fast-growing grass. 2 loads of mulch were dropped into the playground at the park at the front of the city. It has made a huge difference, although we may need another load in order to get it completely filled and leveled better with the sidewalk to avoid injuries from the step down. We also need to look into adding mulch into the playground closest to City Hall, which is a little low as well. The spare mower has been repaired and is up and running. At this time, I am happy to announce that all equipment is in working order with the exception of the old truck with which Mr. Queen is working on getting up and running like new.
Good job.
So, sanitation, we are continuing to add new sanitation accounts due to customer dissatisfaction with other companies. Their loss has been our gain. Trash bills will be going out this month. I'm also happy to announce that Malden Sanitation has paid their permit fees and submitted all necessary paperwork. To date, they are the only company who has done so, but I will continue to work on this.
Okay, and at some point, I think we need to serve notice on the other companies that they're, they have to come by and get the permit here at City Hall. So
Yeah.
at some point, going down the road. Also, let me drop back to the maintenance. Mike, you did such a fine job on trimming up those bushes over there, going up where the marble building used to be. We need to get those bushes trimmed down to the level that you had them at, where you can, as you're pulling out of the intersection there, you can see up the street. So if you would make a note to have, matter of fact, our new part-time guy or Mr. Fawcett take care of trimming that. You might want to wait till we get our new part-time guy, which hopefully is going to be maybe a more menial type laborer than our main maintenance man. But you know what I'm talking about there, don't you?
Yeah.
If you pull out coming out from the post office on the side railroad track, you can't see up Main Street.
Yeah, and also, I don't know if y'all noticed around this building, we always have this huge overgrowth there. And there was a snake friend that came out on Ricky the other day. So he has decided that, well, he mowed the snake over, but.
What kind of snake was it?
A dead one. Ricky 1, snake 0. But well, I went ahead and asked the TDS people, and they're like, we're not going to do it, but if you want to get rid of it, feel free. So he had began to do it, but it's been so muddy down there that he hasn't really been able to get there to properly remove it. So you'll notice that he has started on that.
Well, that'd be something else you might want to save for the new part-time.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Ricky was trying to at least get enough cleared to where he could get the lawnmower through.
Save the menial task for younger laborers. But anyway, that's good.
Mayor, should I be asking for compensation for the work that I've done in the past? Because I've done that part that he's talking about.
You and I,
Thank you.
you and I used to show up all the time, you know.
Well, you never acknowledged it before, so I figured maybe it's good timing to.
You done a good job. You can have twice what you make as a council member.
Okay.
What's that problem?
Okay, go ahead, Tina, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, it's fine, no. And let's see, information on the July 20th work session meeting. The work session for this month is scheduled to be on Thursday, July 20th at 7. The public hearing for the Cherokee County millage rate has been advertised for Thursday, July 13th. This is so that we can meet the necessary deadlines to submit the county. There will be, submit to the county, I'm sorry. There will be a full rollback, which means that there is no increase. There is an agenda item later on addressing this, but I thought rather than to have 3 meetings this month, we could move the work session to the 13th as well so that people can enjoy their summer, and we'll vote on that later. And then miscellaneous, the additional security cameras have been installed, and we now have coverage over the Nature Trail parking lot as well as the other properties that the city owns. I have contacted our insurance company to see if our rates will drop now that we have these cameras in place, especially in the areas that we're concerned. They're supposed to get back to me and then send somebody out and assess and see if our rates will drop. The engineer has spoken with the camera company, and they're working to fit us in as soon as possible. They were working on a project for the city of Atlanta, which had kept them from getting it done to date. And one final note, City Hall will be closed tomorrow in observance of the 4th of July holiday. I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful day celebrating our great nation.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I have some questions for you, Tina. Do we get to have an opportunity to make any more changes on the budget or ask questions about the budget, or are we?
We're kind of in a deadline. Our fiscal year technically started Monday, but we still, Sunday, July 1st. Whatever day July 1st was, I'm sorry. I've been looking at a June calendar all day today. But, before we go through, when we discuss it, before we do the first hearing, if I can always scratch, make the notes in, we agree on it, and then I can just add it in.
I mean, I can certainly discuss it at the agenda item of budget.
Okay.
I mean, it's not.
All right. Then my second question is, I know in the minutes we talked about the sanitation study. When do you think we'd have that done?
I had put the word out, but I went away to training, so it didn't give me a chance to put the word out until I got back. So I haven't really gotten much feedback on that, so I'm still working on it. Trying to see what other cities do and get their input and weigh it. It's hard I'm still struggling to find cities, because not many cities have, especially local, but even throughout the state, that have their own sanitation. So I'm trying to get more input from them as far as that's concerned as well. So we have, a good amount of information on both sides.
So when do you think you'd have it done?
I'm not sure.
Do you want to give yourself a date?
I think she's, with everything she's doing on the budget and all these things she's had to deal with lately, that's understandable that she wouldn't have that done. So,
I'd like to say, I mean, sometime in August, I can't say whether it'll be the first meeting or maybe the work session in August. I'll try to aim for that and see what I
if
can
you
do.
set that goal for yourself, but, you know, you've done a good job on, you know, the stuff that you've been doing for the last 6 weeks or whatever, so
Thank
we
you.
don't want to pressure you on it.
Well, I was kind of thinking of it in the context of the budget. And if it had, you never know what you're gonna come back with, but it could have significant difference on how we set our budget if we, but we're not gonna know that, so I guess.
No, and the thing is with the budget is that, you know, I know, well, since I've been on the council, we haven't done much in the way of amendments. And I thought that that was just because that's the way it was, but the more I looked into it, the more I realized it's not the case. We can amend, I mean, if y'all are really up to it, we could amend the budget once a month, but generally they do it every 6 months, like halfway through the year. Halfway through the year, they generally do, you know, amendments and make adjustments, but sometimes if something arises, for example, an opportunity with the sanitation, then we could do it sooner.
So let me go on, and another question I had, what's the status on our IGA, the Waleska version, the intergovernmental agreement?
No one ever gave me anything back. My
So
input
when
back.
are we gonna vote on it then?
No one had ever given me any input back, so I didn't even have a chance to go to them to vote on. I mean, I haven't even, have you gotten anything, Joe?
No.
Yeah, I haven't gotten anything either, so we haven't even bothered to contact Cherokee.
Well, I mean, we've got it in our budget proposal again, and that's why I was thinking we really should have that. It's kind of like another issue like the police thing. You can't redo your budget unless you really know what you are anticipating spending money on.
And doesn't that hinge on the question of the police department that's on the agenda? I mean, you wouldn't do
Well,
that.
it doesn't really
You
hinge
wouldn't do
on.
that. if you
Yeah,
had
it
a
doesn't,
police
because we don't
department.
need, I
It's
mean,
not.
if we don't do the
Yeah.
police department, it's not a necessity.
No,
It would just mean that more money would go. If we don't do it, it just means that more money goes into the budget.
yeah. And I guess, I mean, you.
And then that could be the dilapidated building fund or something.
The last thing I had was, would you be able to share with us the classes and stuff that you went to this last week? And not only that, but kind of map us out where it gets us to your certification.
Okay, I'm about halfway through my certification.
You don't have to do it now, I was next meeting.
Oh, okay, good, because I just took it all out of my binder. I had it in
No,
here,
no.
so I was
No,
trying to
it's
think
just
of
a-
it. But yeah, I can go ahead and do that.
And kind of map out to us where you think you're going and where are these certifications and da-da-da-da, so we have the big picture.
Yeah, I can do that.
And it's good to always tell your council about all the good things you learn that you're.
I'm still soaking it all in.
Thank you.
That all that. Okay, next on unfinished business, we have the vote for the status of the police department for the upcoming fiscal year. Everybody knows my stand. I'm firmly, we definitely need a police department. We need to do whatever we gotta do to provide a police department, to provide for protection of Pickens County, or Pickens and Cherokee County, that, you know, our citizens. Properly done, a police department is an excellent idea for the city, and, you know, it's not gonna be properly done without a police department. So,
My concern with that again is that right now, I don't think there's enough money in the budget to pay a police officer and to keep up with all of the vehicles and equipment and all that goes along with that.
okay. Well, you and I have discussed that, and I disagree with you, but.
I think the budget, excuse me, I think the budget's sitting at like 52,000. I
I
mean,
thought it was 62. But anyway, you've got 10,000, that's, or how much is in the budget for the Cherokee Services Agreement?
I put it at 10, even though it would come in at less. I put it in a nice round number at 10,000.
Okay. If we spend that toward the police department, we'd have 62,000.
And we could sell the Tahoe and the Crown Vic put that money back in the police department, along with the sidearm motor that we don't need.
Well, no, and I get that, but I think there also needs to be to where there is a consistent money flow for that, because that's a short-term solution, where you're putting it in, it's a one-time chunk of money. But it's kind of like, personally, I don't think you can bring in a police chief and offer him $30,000 a year and expect him to walk out the door and put his life on the line every single time he leaves. And there's been so much mess with police departments and the way people look at them and, you know, the disrespect and everything else, that there's no benefits here, there's nothing. So it's like, if I'm not opposed to having a police department here, but I think if we have it, you need to pay people what they're worth, especially considering that there's no benefits. Make it so that it's not a job hopper position. So it's not, they're coming in to get this position,
Right.
put on the resume, and go to the next one to get a better job. Make it so whoever it is well qualified, they want to stay here, you know, and they're willing to put up with the mess from city council and everything else that goes along with it.
There should never be any mess from the city council.
My husband was a police chief here, and I will say that is not true.
Did the mayor ever direct him to do anything?
But on the budget,
Another story
in
for
the
another
police
day.
department budget, which is in the next agenda item, actually, the $10,000 isn't in there. Like, that is, like, so in other words, there's a difference between the one and the other. There's $10,000 in the budget without a police department set aside for that. But if you go to the police department budget, that's the one with the police department, that's non-existent, as well as the contingencies are gone, the reserve is gone, and we have to pull somewhere around $10,430 from the previous reserve just to break even on that. So I understand it's confusing, because it shows like, hey, we have this, if we take it out, we have money, but that was taken out, and that money was already accounted for in the budget with the police department, so.
Okay.
We could run the police department without having a police chief, what we need to
Can't.
look at safety.
You have to have
Police
police chief.
chief.
There's no way around it.
And to do that, I think we have to rate, the other thing that comes into it, my understanding, and I'm not one for taxes, so I don't get all the laws and rules and regulations, but the millage rate would have to be raised to adequately fund this. Whether it's a mill, quarter mill, whatever. But I have learned the past week or so that when that's done, somehow Pickens County they have this lost thing that controls their millage rate. So my understanding is when the millage rate goes up, the people on the Pickens side the people on the Cherokee side are the ones that are going to fund it.
Exactly.
So that means all of us that live over here are paying for all the stuff that goes over there, and nobody over there, that their actual out-of-pocket money, that there's not an actual money coming out of their pocket to fund it.
Let me clear that up. Pickens County has local option special sales tax. That means the people of Pickens County voted to put in local option sales
Yeah.
tax. That is the reason we have two different millage rates. Which, how much difference is there in the millage rates? Less than 0.1% or whatever, I mean.
I'm sorry, I've been dealing with the Cherokee millage rate. I haven't
You
looked
know,
at the
we got
big agenda
to
for
deal
the
with
next
both,
budget.
but I mean,
But doesn't that put a lock
If
in,
we-
like it protects it from going up?
now, if we had, where we set our millage rates, the way the budget process we shouldn't have all these preconceived ideas of
That's
what
why I
the
said I don't totally
Well,
understand it,
Well,
and we
I'm
need
trying to
clarification
explain
on
it to
it.
you, but, if you should decide what all you want to do for the city of Nelson. And then you decide what it's gonna take to fund that. And then you look for the funding sources that you have. Now, if you have to increase the millage rate, we need to be brave enough as a council to say, that's the call, everybody around us has raised their millage rate. Now, Cherokee County pulled $500,000 out of their reserves to keep from raising the millage rate.
They did a full rollback, but they had so much in reserve that they were able to do that.
Well, then they've got big reserves, but
I'm not opposed to having millage rate increased if it needs to be increased. But I think it needs to be done in increments, but I think it should affect both sides of the town and not just
well,
one side of the
I
town.
think that Cherokee County should pay a local option sales tax.
I'm talking about what directly is going to come out of my checking account.
Well, Cherokee County does not have a local option sales tax. I think they should have. because it makes all the people that live in mobile home parks, all the people who are renters, and all the people that live in apartment complexes, it makes it, puts everybody on a level playing field.
Yeah.
And, you know, it would be a tremendous, you know, a local option sales tax for Cherokee County would probably pay, you know, we look at what the SPLOST that we're looking at trying to get passed in Cherokee. It's going to pay, what, 400 million or 300 something million dollars over 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, a local option sales tax is something Cherokee County needs. Now, whether or not the citizens of Cherokee County would vote it in, but Pickens County citizens have voted it in. So the reason there's a difference in our millage rates is probably on account of the fact that Pickens County has a local option sales tax.
I understand.
But Pickens County just went up almost a meal. You know, and you look at all the governments around us, including Cherokee County, like I said, they pulled $500,000 out of the reserve to keep from having to increase their millage rate. You know, and they, you know, if I was a Cherokee County citizen, I would be jumping up and down demanding that if I was a homeowner in Cherokee County, I would be demanding to put local option sales tax in, because everybody, when you go to the store and buy anything, or you buy your alcohol, or anything you buy, you're going to be paying taxes. It's going to keep the roads up and fund the sheriff's department, fund the jail operation and everything else. And, you know, it's very difficult to get it passed in a lot of instances now. Most counties around the state of Georgia have passed it.
I understand that, but that doesn't pertain to us right
Why
now.
not?
Because we have no control over what Cherokee County does. We have control strictly over what
I'm
happens.
not saying we have
And
any control over what Cherokee County does. What I'm telling you is the difference in the taxation between Pickens and Cherokee County. And if I was an elected official in Cherokee County, or, you know, a citizen, you know, I'm in favor of having local option sales tax, because
I understand
it
that.
pays, you know, all, you know, the amount of work that law enforcement has to do in that area, in these apartment complexes and mobile home park down at Holly Springs.
You've already told me that. I'm just saying that that's not, I understand what you're saying. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm saying that's not something that we as a council don't have control over what Cherokee County does. We do have control over what goes on in Nelson. And so as a citizen, I would like to fully understand if I'm going to be paying, if my millage rate goes up and I'm going to be paying more for taxes, are the people on the Pickens side also going to be directly paying more for taxes?
Pickens County side's already taking more taxes.
See, what it is, when you put the millage rate in, there's a paper, and I'm sorry I didn't, when I had sent the email out, there was that formulated thing, that sheet that you figure it out and you put in the numbers. And on the one line, it talks about there was a line there for lost, and they give you an amount and it puts it in and you have to roll it back. You have to roll the millage rate back because you can't go above a certain amount. So it's going to depend on how much the lost amount is.
And if they put it in Cherokee County, they require that all the cities of Cherokee County roll
That's
it back.
right now, is what I'm getting. I just want to make sure that everybody understands whatever that situation before the millage rate. You
Well,
know,
we're not
because that's how
talking
we
about
would have to fund
We're
the
not
police
talking about
department.
raising the millage rate. I was considering maybe we might have to, but we have determined that.
It's been discussed several times this week. I'm just saying.
Well, who's discussing?
You've
I
discussed it.
discussed it with you.
Yeah,
Has anybody else discussed
I
it?
talked to Tina about it after I talked to you about it, trying to understand
Has
exactly what was on.
anybody else discussed it with you?
Why does that even matter? I mean, it's like, this is like getting
Okay,
left people.
let's go ahead. Vote on the status of the Pickens County Police Department.
You mean the Nelson Police
I mean, the Nelson Police, I'm sorry.
Can I ask you
Police
one
Department,
question?
the city of Nelson.
How much does it cost us to send the chief to school?
Between $5,000 and $10,000 a year, depending
No,
on where
no,
they
no.
are in their
You're
certification.
the clerk. You're supposed to, it does not cost $5,000 to $10,000 to send them to school.
Well, to have them as certified to be
No.
a complete certified chief of police, They said depending on where they are in their certification.
It costs, the cost of sending them down to Jekyll Island or Savannah or wherever they have the training. It costs 1 week's salary plus the expense of them driving down there and their lodging, which we just paid that cost out for your training, and we certainly need to do that.
But it's more than, it's not just a 1 week
It's not
training.
$5,000 to $10,000.
It's not just a 1 week training thing for the chief.
It is, it's just a training, and then every officer has to go through recertification every year.
Mhm.
And Cherokee County officer, most of the Cherokee County and Pickens County, they offer classes all the time that these people can choose to go to
Mhm.
and get their 20 hours recertification
Mhm.
figure that they have to go every year. The chief, once he's certified as a chief, he's always certified as a chief. So that's an inaccurate statement that it's
No,
$5,000
but
to
the
$10,000.
post-certification has to be kept up every year also then.
Post-certification,
That's the
you
one
were
that's
Cherokee
on the-
County, you guys allow Pickens County or any other law enforcement officer to go to your police academy and complete their recertification.
Absolutely. We offer classes.
And they're glad to have them.
Yes,
They
sir.
do a great job. They've been fortunate enough to be able to put their own certification program in. But where do you guys do the traffic, the EVOC training? Do you still send your guys even down to the public safety training facility to do the EVOC?
Yes, sir. All mandated students have to go to JIPS to be certified in EVOC. That's a part of the mandate class.
And the EVOC is where you can take people out. Well, the EVOC is the training of being able to handle a police cruiser in a skid or in hazardous situations, but somebody pulling out in front of you. EVOC's an excellent course that they probably will make all drivers go to, but there'd be a whole lot less wrecks. But anyway, and even they have to send theirs because you'd have to build a track in Holly Springs, and I don't think there's room enough for one down there, is there?
No, sir. We don't have a track in Cherokee County.
There is an EVOC track down at the public service training facility in down in Atlanta. Does anybody else have an EVOC track?
I think Cobb County has one, but they may charge for it. So basically, when you get mandated as a police officer, you have to attend the EVOC training
Right.
to get mandated. So it's not like a recertification thing you do for EVOC every year. That's just a one-time deal.
And that just gives officers out there with a more professional ability to do the job. And there's not any more cost. I guess it costs Cherokee and Pickens and everybody else to send somebody to EVOC, I would imagine, doesn't it?
That's part of their mandate. That's what they pay the
They
fee to the
mandate.
state.
So what Cherokee County charges for mandate training at your school, or in this case, y'all, of course, are you training the outside officers now?
Actually, we don't charge it. It's the state that runs the mandate class, so they pay the state.
You just have a facility for that?
We just have the building, we have the state in our building teaching, and then they actually take the students down, so it's not us who paying for it. If I may,
Certainly.
you go to chief school, and that's 1 week school, so to be able to go to chief school, you got to be mandated to be a
Right.
police officer. So to be a chief, and I know this because I've been to the classes for 1 week, and it's down in Duluth. It's actually 2 weeks now. It's in Duluth that you get certified to be a chief.
That's what I was thinking.
And then they require a certain amount of executive level training classes that have to be approved to the Georgia State
Training.
Chiefs Association. It's
Mhm.
different executive level training, but I think what you're talking about is the chief conference that you can go to get more hours, but
Right.
there's other places in and around the state, quite a few that offer the executive level.
Well, Dawson County, you guys offer it, Pickens County officers, they offer, in other words, they've got certified officers that do specific training in their field, and the officers can attend any of these classes at their option. Usually, I think Pickens County, they probably make people go without being paid. Do you guys still have to do that? in your own time, or
No, sir, we pay them to
you
go.
pay them?
Yes, sir.
But, you know, a lot of times police officers go on their own time for a lot of training because they're dedicated public officials.
I'd like to make a motion, we table this till we get a full council up here, and then maybe we can check in on a retired person or something like that, that we can afford before we just do away with it completely.
I'll second that. I do have a question about that. We keep all the certifications in place
We
though,
have to keep
correct?
the certification.
But
So
we can get rid of
we
the
can-
Tahoe and,
We can squash the budget down to where it's completely nominal, but everything's still there and functioning, and it can be, I think that's a good
start
idea,
back up.
yes.
But we could get rid of the Tahoe and, that Crown Vic.
Tina had said something, I guess it was a month or so ago when we were talking about it. Is it possible to make that Tahoe like a city car? So when there's times that, you know, whether it's her, whether it's a council member, whoever needs to go do something, there's a city vehicle available? So that,
It is not actually with, like, for example, the
It's not a
Charger
police car.
was purchased, you know, well, I mean, I say, you know, like, most police vehicles I guess they're reinforced, I don't know, he would know better than I do. There's special aspects to police vehicles, usually you order like a fleet vehicle or something, and it's, I mean, you add the decals and things like that, but the Tahoe was just purchased as a regular Tahoe, and then they added.
I think Tahoe has a police package on it. Where you can purchase Tahoes with police packages, or you can purchase Dodge Chargers.
Yeah, well, see, the Charger we purchased as a police package from the factory, so we could make sure it had everything, where the Tahoe was bought on a lot, and then they made additions to it, but it wasn't.
so it has all the stuff if you have to put a prisoner in the back or whatever, that it doesn't have
Yeah, we
the
could
engine stuff.
keep it for a spare vehicle around here or something, drop the insurance coverage where you don't pay so much insurance, I guess.
And it may not be something that's feasible, but I just thought that that was
But I
a
for
good
sure get
idea.
rid of the Ford Crown Vic,
Yes.
it's been sitting there for.
You seconded that motion?
Yeah, I did.
What were your motion again?
Table this until we get a full council.
So what does that do to your budget when you do that?
Well, I think we were leaving in the budget because we may have a police chief after we get another council member.
Well, we can always, in the vote with the budget, the way the budget without the police department is, there's a cushion there. So if we get a full council, there will be money there, because you gotta think we're cutting it in half, we'll only have 6 months to tend to. So,
So
Well,
we're.
David, do you think we ought to leave the budget alone to where there is once we get our other council member, that you need to look at that?
We're not spending the money anyway. are
Oh, we're
we?
not spending it anyway, if it's there.
Why not sit there if it could be used somewhere else?
Well, if we use it somewhere else, it won't be there.
It won't be there because it's not being used currently, so then if it needs to be used, it can be put back in.
That's my question. I'm not sure which budget we're gonna go with if we table this as
well, that'll be the next question. That's the next agenda
Well,
item. We're
it
just trying to get through this one first.
To answer this question, I kind of want to know what we're gonna do with the budget. So help me here.
Well, I think we probably operate off one that has the police budget, but then
Okay, so we're gonna leave
not,
the,
like, just squash that.
we'll
like
still
that.
have police and we're just postponing the decision until after the election. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, you have a second. We have a vote. All in favor of doing that, raise your right hand. Okay, motion passes. Okay, next, we have the first reading of the 2018 fiscal budget ordinance. Are you gonna handle that, Tina?
First we have to, before we read the budget ordinance, we need to figure out what we're going with, and then we can ordinate. So, I wanted to go through, let's see. All right, so if we go with, to answer your questions earlier, Mike, if we go with the second budget, which has the police department, then we have no reserve and no contingency, so if we have any trees down, we're not gonna be able to, that takes care. Now let me flip back to my notes, because you were asking if stuff was added. Just give me a second. get back to this page. Okay. So if we do that, let me make sure the part-time employee is still in here. There's no contingencies or reserves in that budget. That does include the temporary employee salary for maintenance, so that is still in there. If you look under maintenance, let's see here. There's no money for the dilapidated buildings. The dumpster should still be in there. Let me check and make sure I was able to include that in there. Yes, dumpster rental is still in that budget. I think that eradicated my, no, there is mulch in there too. If you look under park and recreation expenses, it says repairs and maintenance and there's mulch next to it, so that's in that one. So it does not have contingencies, reserve, and there will be no room to put anything in terms of dealing with dilapidated buildings and whatnot. And we're pulling $10,430 out of the previous reserve in order to balance that budget.
And does that have then the intergovernmental agreement?
No, it's out, the balance on that. There's a line item for it because that's the way it prints, but it's a zero amount on that.
Is it possible to do the budget without the police department in it and then switch it back over where there is a police department budget?
We currently have a police department, I think we would have to budget for it in there.
Once we have a full council, then we can actually vote on it?
We currently have a police department.
Can I finish my sentence? Is it possible to do that and then switch it back over to where we have the police department budget as part of it? If the full council votes to have a police department, let's have money set aside for the incidental expenses until then, as far as like the vehicle insurance, all of like the tag reader thing. I mean, there was a check that went out this week for $600 for, I think it was a tag reader. or
Yeah,
whatever,
the license for the tag
to
reader.
make sure all of that stuff is covered.
Yeah.
But just so there isn't, I mean, I don't know which way it needs to go in order to,
I mean, we can go with the
That's for the
other,
city.
we can go with the first budget, which is the one that doesn't have, I mean, obviously there's line, I believe there's line items, hold on, I'm sorry, I kept the line items in there. I hope it printed out in here. Yes, there is police department expenses. It's just that it's zeroed out right now because there's nothing budgeted for that. Bear in mind, if we decide not to do the MSA, then that's an extra $10,000 that would fall into the reserve, which would take our reserve from 17,370 to 27,370. And that would give us money to continue on even 6 months into the budget.
Either one that you, either one that you select, obviously, you may need to change mid-year, neither one of them's perfect, obviously. They can go.
We don't use it for the police department, we can use it for whatever we need to, do we not?
yeah.
Well, you know that
That's
the
fine.
current
Sure that we
budgeted
do it.
amount in the police department budget, that you're already presumably saving half of that, correct?
Yeah.
You're not spending half of it on salary.
Right.
So those monies
That's all
presumably
set there.
could be applied elsewhere as you go through the year.
So that could go into the building.
Well, there's just all that money just sitting there, and there's all these expenses and stuff that are going out, because I mean, money markers aren't last September, last August, so I mean, there's been all of that time, and there's money sitting in the budget for salaries and all the insurance and uniforms and stuff that aren't being used, and until we know what we're gonna do, we can always use it for something else.
I mean, like I said, I don't intend to go, hog wild with anything, and that's why I kind of had that reserve line item, because that would give us the ability to change things or to deal with any catastrophes. We kind of really haven't had things accounted for before that. Well, not always, just sometimes we just haven't had things accounted for, and when I went through, I carefully tried to make sure that, like, we had money for insurance, for GERMA, for, raises, just different things like that I added, to make sure that we had it based upon the studies of years past and what we've kind of had to pull out.
Yeah.
And then Ricky and I have worked hard together trying to come up with maintenance fees and how much we're going through. Like, this is kind of his first full season, so he's been going through that and keeping track of how many blades he goes through and how many hours he gets on a blade. So we've been kind of just, it's like a work in progress.
Yeah, it gives them a much accurate reading next year.
Like I said, the only thing that bothers me is just, going with the fact that we're borrowing from the previous reserve in the budget with the police department, which if we're only having it, if we're not having it for 6 months, that wouldn't be the case either. But the problem is that in the meantime, I'd feel uncomfortable taking stuff from that.
Well, and we still got $8,800 in here for municipal court.
For where?
Under the
The police department?
municipal court expenses.
Yes, because that's what we're gonna need to, we're figuring, like, you have to pay the judge and all that other stuff.
But of course, that would come back into the budget if we don't have a law enforcement, so, and the MSA agreement, now where is it at in
The MSA agreement is not accounted for in the budget. It's on the last page of the police department, and if you look, it's under intergovernmental agreement expenses and municipal services agreement. On the police department says 0.
In 2018 proposed, we have $10,000.
That's on the budget without the police department. The one with the police department has a dash of 0 on that. And just to kind of help you tell them apart, the police department budget, it says general fund with PD at the top, but there's a yellow line on the front page too, so that kind of helps you tell the difference between the two.
Okay, I see it.
Gina, can I ask a question?
Sure.
On the administrative expenses, 100-1500, for our
Which one?
salaries and wages
Uh-huh.
previously classified as city clerk. And because you switched it around, I was trying to see, did that person get a raise?
Oh, that was, what happened was that Stacy, who does our reconciliation, her pay was being taken out of city
Well,
clerk.
I understand that, but I couldn't read this to see what, if anything, had happened to her.
She just went up, we just anticipated a little bit more because before she wasn't being used, and I worked with the auditor, Casey Joe, as well as Stacy, to try to help us on that audit finding for separation of duties. So there's other things that she has stepped up and done.
So I'm fine with it. I just think we should pay her for it.
Mhm.
I mean, you're using her a lot
We're
beyond
paying her
what.
for it.
Mhm.
We're paying her for it.
Yeah, but she's doing more now than what she used to do. It used to be to reconcile the books.
But we're paying her by the hour that she's here. So we're paying her for whatever she does.
Just wanted to be compensated.
Are
Do
we
you
paying
think
her?
she's compensated fine? Okay.
She didn't have an issue. I mean, I asked her if she wanted me to bring a raise for her, and she said that, I mean, she works another full-time job, so.
I understand.
And she feels that now she's actually, not that she wasn't earning her money before, but she feels like she's got more of a purpose now because she wanted to step up and help more, and now she has the opportunity to do so.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Answers my question.
I did account for the raises and bonuses in the other fields. But that's why there's a little bit of confusion there, because her money was being taken out
I
of,
understand.
yeah, and we wanted to correct that so it didn't appear that.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else got any questions or whatever?
Question, Mayor. So
Sure.
we're, the one we're going to vote on, which I guess is to keep the police, am I correct? Is of the two choices?
Up to y'all.
Pardon?
It's up to y'all, as to which to vote.
Well, I thought that's where you were leading us when I asked the question. If we
If
postpone this, which one are we going to go for?
No, I didn't say anything that was,
Okay,
I just sat here.
then help me.
David's
So
motion
we're
was-
undecided on this whole
We're
issue
leaving the
still?
budget for the time being.
David's motion was that we leave it for the time being until we get the other.
So that means,
Phil-
And we done voted.
Well, no, we didn't vote on the budget, we just voted on.
Oh, yeah,
Voted to
so it
postpone.
wasn't part
decided
of the
on this part.
resolution then?
Of course, there's really not a vote called for. Well, we had the first reading. This is the first reading of the 2018 budget, so it doesn't require a vote. Anybody got any more further questions as far as the 2018 fiscal year budget? The next one, we have vote to approve projects and amounts.
Are we going to vote?
We don't have to.
Do you have to read anything or no?
No.
Okay, just at the next
That was
one
it.
then there's a, okay.
So, don't we have to have the final budget in front of us? To even make it a first reading?
No, you can modify it as you go. That's the point. You can make modifications before you vote.
Okay.
Okay,
This
so
has to
what,
be discussed.
So we're still in the discussion phase.
okay, well, what I'm saying is, if you all, what kind of modifications, so that I can do that and have it ready for the next meeting.
Could there be a budget, a hybrid budget that at least modifies the salary that was approved for the police chief and reallocate the 6 months of money somewhere else?
So, before the next meeting, then kind of come up with a budget that compensates for 6 months without the police department, is that what you're saying?
It's like
Only
leave
if
it 6
that's,
months.
only if that's not really, really difficult.
It's like leave 6 months in there, so if the council does decide to have a police department.
So kind of tally things out, kind of like, you know, in other words, maybe go with a percentage, do a 50% and leave it in there.
Just for the remaining, so that portion can be
Because you
reallocated.
voted
as
that
well.
you're not going to do it for 6 months.
Yeah. more or
So-
less, yeah.
You know that now.
So 6 months of salary and everything else is not going to be used, and that can be reallocated for a
Somewhere else.
project or something in town.
Or just to reserves. I mean, I don't know if that much, if you put that much in reserves. But, so I mean, you don't have to choose one or the other. I mean, given the vote, if you want to.
If you all can get in there.
If that's not really, really difficult.
So we make it really getting a.
You might kill me afterwards. But
No, I mean, if that's what you all want me to do, I can go ahead and do that. And then that would, you know, go ahead and like I said, kind of chop it in half or do a 50% thing.
I'd probably vote to add it to your reserves, if we've got the money in reserve, if we can.
To add back into contingency. So in other words, kind of chop it in half and take that and put it into reserves. And then I would have a contingency back.
And then we'd have it for the police department and then
If
council
you're-
would have selected.
I can do that.
Okay, summarize what we're doing here.
Make it really complicated.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you going to do?
So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take the budget with the police department,
Okay.
and I'm gonna take the 6 months worth, basically kind of cut it down the middle. That would be municipal court as well as police department, because they go hand in hand.
Right.
And I will take that and put give us a contingency fund so that we can take care of, you know, disasters that are bound to happen. And then also create at least some sort of reserve.
Okay, I
And
think
what
And if
happens,
you want me to add in the, I have to call it dilapidated building fund, Lamar, work with me, what's a nice name? Huh? Vacant?
Vacant.
Like something, come up with a title for that and put something in there as well if that's what you all want.
well, and then, yes to all that, then what about the intergovernmental agreement? Where is that? And we wait for
She's waiting on
wait for the
direction
8
from
months to
us.
decide that we're gonna do or not do it or vote on it?
Well, what happened was is that I was supposed to get, y'all were supposed to make your red marquee things on a copy and give it to me so that Jeff and I could comprise a list of what we want and what we don't want, and then take it to the county and see if they're gonna budge, and we never got that point, so.
Okay, so I just wanna know where that fits in this budget that we're gonna do. Is it in, is it out?
Well, I think what you're talking about is for the capital improvement budget. As far as making, at that point.
No, it's the intergovernmental agreement for services from the county.
The MSA agreement.
Should we go ahead and, we don't have it on the agenda, but I don't think we're going to agree to the intergovernmental agreement.
Fine, I'm just saying it needs to get resolved, that's all I.
You could either leave half of that in or presume that after 6 months, it might take us another 6 months to even get that finalized. If
And
we
just
were gonna
not
do
worry
it,
about it.
and leave it out,
Yeah,
which is probably the more likely.
yeah, and, I mean, you guys
So
gotta
probably-
negotiate it, then we're gonna bring it back for council to vote, they may
That
vote
would
it down.
that would take time anyway, I'd probably leave it out. That's up to you.
They still want it lost.
Or we can-
All right,
You're in the
so-
process, and if all of a sudden we do have to do it, we need to have the money.
Or at least
Well,
some.
there would be money,
Should be at least some
presumably.
money allocated there.
Yeah. But my question is, are you all in agreement with me adding money to the vacant building fund, and if so, how much? If not, then I need to know, like, speak now and forever hold your peace.
What was the number you raised at your public hearing?
10,000.
10,000? 10,000?
That's probably a reasonable estimate to take care of.
Okay.
One,
I mean, in terms of if you.
Legal.
If you had to tear one down,
Mhm.
you'd need that much.
Yeah, you'd have to have, own the property and then bulldoze it.
We're talking about specific properties.
If we leave it in reserve, can we not use it for whatever,
Yeah,
for the building? So why not put it in reserve?
okay,
Just
Depends
because
on
I
how-
allocate it to one thing.
Depends on what you want to budget for.
that's fine.
It's up to you.
I'd say put it in the budget. And also have a reserve. The reserve to me is a rainy day. It's when you run into a problem, it's not really an operation, kind of an exercise that you.
Well, that's what I mean, contingencies would be considered your rainy day fund. That's,
Contingencies were originally, I don't mean to interrupt here, but we didn't have contingency until I was mayor. I introduced the idea of the reserve and the contingency. The contingency was because our cash flow was really good or really bad. And Brandy was like, at different times, we didn't know how people were gonna get paid. So I said, what other cities do is they have a contingency. And it was way more than the $1,000 that Miranda had in there.
Mhm.
And I don't know where that's gone over time.
oh, it's, the contingency fund is still in the
Yeah,
bank.
but it's not $1,000, which was in the budget that Miranda had.
No, because
No,
when I
it's-
talk to the other cities, usually when they keep a contingency,
It's a percentage.
Waleska used something like, water main break, like if they had a water main break, that was one thing. It's just, fallen trees, things that are inevitably gonna happen that you can't necessarily plan for. You can't budget and say, $1,000 for 2 trees, because when you do that, you're just asking for 10 trees to fall down. You know what I mean? So that is what they recommended, and then the reserve, is kind of something that we keep having on our audit finding, where we're not meeting up with the reserve that we're kind of expected to have as a municipality. But that was where I was going with that. So what do y'all want me to add anything? You just want me to keep it in reserve, and then we can always change it and add something for,
I'm for keeping it in reserve.
okay. David,
Yeah, me too.
reserve, Kelsey.
I mean, you can use it for anything if you got it reserved, right?
Exactly.
But if you put in another thing, you use it for that, and that's it.
Unless you have your own here.
I vote we'll go with reserve.
Okay. So,
But if we have a house where they tear down, we can use it out of reserves, can we not?
So, use it to, I mean, at some point do a budget amendment.
maybe when we can discuss that kind of program more in detail and decide, you know, what all it involves, because that is, I mean, the legal, even getting to the point, the tearing it down is the easy part, so to say. It's the getting up to that point and all the, that's why Jeff gets the big bucks. It's the legalities getting up to that point that is what's so costly. And then I didn't know if you all wanted to go over quick the capital improvement plan and budget, or I'm going to shut up and we can move to 6C.
I don't have a copy of the capital improvement.
It's in your binder.
And
It's
that's
the third staple thing.
on the budget thing here.
Capital improvement plan and proposed operating budget, and then behind
Is
are
that
the
different than what you
individuals.
sent?
It was with the two other budgets. We're showing three stapled things.
Oh, yeah, I do have that. Okay, I thought that was the
And
separate.
then also bear in mind with this that the SPLOST, the Cherokee County SPLOST does not kick into effect till September of 2018, so I didn't account. We can always add, subtract, and move around. But basically what I did was remove the things that we have already covered, which would be the truck and the security cameras, and broke it down into what we have in the SPLOST 2008. That's Pickens, SPLOST Cherokee 3, SPLOST Cherokee 4, and then SPLOST Pickens 2. And kind of move things up that weren't done.
Well,
Like
the
it-
last time the SPLOST was approved, the problem is, it was so narrowly defined that it limited what we could effectively do with it. Is that correct, Councilman?
I think there were times that
You know,
people
it's-
wished there were things in different categories.
So we just need, if you look at the stuff that some of the Cherokee County cities have got in their request, you know, they're kind of broad, and we need to keep ours broad like that too. That's my main point. Which communication systems were locked into that, and our,
You moved on to 6C, Larry. We're still on 6B unless we want to move on officially.
6B.
6B is still the budget. That's what I was talking about. What we have here, the capital improvement plan. I just wanted to show everybody that. And then down on the bottom, I'm sorry, I'm losing me here. It's 6B. It's this last thing in 6B. Maybe this last stable packet. Items listed on the 2017 to 2021 capital improvement plan that are not included in this document. Walking trail maintenance funding must come from the general fund. The 5K annual expense listed on the 2017-2021 capital improvement plan was not included in this document in order to meet SPLOST guidelines. And then the half basketball court and pavilion site are located in Pickens County. There were no funds designated for Parks and Rec in Pickens County SPLOST 2.
Comment on that last part. The previous capital improvement budget showed the park project up at the top of by the water tower. I don't know what that street is up there. Anyway, that's in Cherokee. It's in Cherokee County. It's not in Pickens County.
The half basketball court?
Yeah.
I think it's in.
That's in Pickens.
I think it's Cherokee, I mean, because the line runs right up.
It's Cherokee.
The line runs right up.
You have to, when you
It
get to the
runs
top
up
of the
the
road,
back
you
of
have to
those
turn
property
right.
lines.
Yeah, it runs up the back. It's on the opposite side.
No.
It is like the road like leaps up like a half moon.
Like a water line
So it's
about on
taken it.
property line.
I can show you where the,
Is it? I mean, I have the Cherokee County map, the Cherokee County border there. Well, we can always add that back then if that
But
is
just
in
check
fact.
out, yeah, I'm pretty sure, in fact, I saw the surveyor guy do it. And this was before you guys here, but I actually cleaned up that property at one point when David Leister was the mayor. And spent a lot of time on that piece of property. And happened to be there when the guy next to, down the aisle who did had a surveyor come in. And and like you, I know where he put his pins in for the city. So that's,
So I will
all of it's not in, part
I'll
of it's
verify
where
that
the
and
building
then-
is, it's kind of in Pickens County. But it's kind of split there. Anyway, check it out, it's a
Okay.
minor issue. But
Okay, if it is, then we'll just add it back in there.
yeah,
Next month
yeah,
for
it
you.
was, I think, $15,000.
So.
Okay, do we want to move on then?
Did we vote on anything?
That's the first reading, that, you know, we don't have to vote on that.
We don't vote on anything.
I'll vote on that.
I have direction.
The budget.
For the next meeting, I'll have that fabulous combo type budget
Yeah,
all
that's why I was
over.
wondering if we need to vote to have you do that or not.
You don't have to.
You don't
You
have to.
gave me
Okay.
direction. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, next we've got 6C. Which, like I say, we're locked into the $32,043 for the emergency communication system, which is, if we don't have a police department, we don't really have anything other than, well, the fire department will be participating in that, but we pay 3.75 mils for the fire protection. But there's nothing we can do as far as if we don't have a police officer in.
Well, this also benefits us anyway.
I'm
Yeah.
not questioning, I know what 911 does and what the emergency services do. And we need to appreciate them even more. And then we have the next in there, government buildings, facilities, vehicles, equipment, improvements. I've worded it this way to, if we decide to have a police department again, since we can, the cycle is for 6 years, I would like to use this to be able to do something with what we refer to as community building. Right now, we are limited to what we can use it for in Parks and Recreation Money Fund. I also wanted to use this to cover things like sanitation truck. So.
Because that was one of the things we mentioned.
Right.
Possibility of if we decide to, continue on, it would make sense to use these funds to purchase a sanitation truck rather than financing and
Right.
paying all of it.
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Right here, right there. On the buildings, number 2, I'd like to make a suggestion, and it's kind of summarized in our minutes, that we consider constructing a new, I call it maintenance building, a storage building, to store all of our various vehicles, tractors, and bush hogs, and
Well,
stuff.
unfortunately, we can't use that on the property over here because it's in Pickens County.
So what I'm thinking is, why don't we explore, I'm thinking like we need to build like a 40 by 60 metal building and buy a piece of property over in the industrial park and build up, ground up, put up fencing, put in the septic, full on, make a full building. I did a count, we have like 10 vehicles. And if you've been over to the existing maintenance, when he closes, it is totally overdone. Plus, we've got 3 different cars and a Zuzu. And what I would do is make it a building that had a high ceiling for the sanitation truck to go in. And instead of parking it out there in the lawn off of Pickens, you'd go into the thing and it would fit directly under that public buildings thing. I don't know what the land costs would be, and it's kind of a thing, but I'd like to throw it on the table with, you guys, all and women, think that there's merit in that, because I think it actually has some urgency. I mean, this is ridiculous what we have over there now. I mean, we got tractors, Kubotas, lawnmowers, Bobcats, a brand new truck, not brand new, used truck. That's a space issue. And then we have a lot of stuff scattered, sanitation trucks and that. Under one roof, the thing that they tow behind the tractor, the bush thing, that just sits out there, out in the weather.
It's not gonna hurt a thing, out on the bush.
Well, I'm sure it isn't, but you don't want stuff like that out. You want it under a roof somewhere. And to me, I'd make it a pretty high priority. And I'd like to hear anyone else's comments. You think it's a dumb idea, I'll forget about it. But if you think that there's merit to the idea, I'd like us as a council to maybe vote on it as something to be implemented in the next 6-year SPLOST cycle.
Well, we've got it included here as far as government buildings and everything,
Yeah.
of course. Now, if we use the transportation facilities, equipment and improvements as interpret that as using it for street improvements, we can use that for our improvements on the streets. But we got all that money that's in these other SPLOST accounts
I agree.
that we need to spend
Yeah.
on parks or,
Right.
within the limitations that we can spend it.
Well, and that's why I kind of, under Parks and Recs, facility, equipment, and improvement, I didn't want to completely write that out, because, in years from now, we're probably going to have to replace equipment, and it becomes, and I was like, well, is that maintenance? Well, if it breaks and you're repairing a piece, if you're replacing it all, it's a little bit, it becomes like a capital outlay. So I wanted to leave some there, but we have a lot of money still in these other SPLOST cycles that we're kind of locked into, where it falls into that Parks and Rec, so that's why I kind of just left, I wanted some money in there, that's why that's minimum, and I wanted to make sure that we had definitely roads and streets and things of that nature covered in there, and we still do have other money that, like I said, if you're in the other past SPLOST cycles, I kind of bear that in mind. What do we have that already counts, and then what can we expand so that we're not stuck? But Mike, my opinion doesn't matter, but I think that's interesting, because when you had when you first mentioned it, I was scratching my head thinking, where in tarnations is he intending on putting that thing? But if we buy, that there is property somewhere else.
It's an industrial opportunity. I mean, the zoning's correct, and it gives us a place for storage of stuff too. Just, it would.
Well, I've had discussions with the owner of that property down there. We were considering, Cherokee County would like to build a replacement fire department up here. But it's got to be in Cherokee County. So, it looking
Let's
for
buy
places.
some property for them.
Well, and that'd be an excellent place for our, if we put up a government building up there.
Yeah, maybe we ought to think in
And
terms
that,
of
of course,
that.
all that property down there has been in foreclosure. It's owned by a fellow who's pretty cooperative. But, he owns a lot of property down there in addition to the property that was foreclosed where the manufacturing company down there is now. All the way down the road there, he owns a lot of property back the other way too.
Can I get some comment from Queen or David? Do you think this is a dumb idea or a good idea, or what do you?
No, I just don't like the idea of it being our way over there. It's the only
Uh-huh.
thing I don't like about it. I agree, you need a building, but I'd rather have it,
Close,
everything close
yes,
together,
yeah.
where you don't have to.
Well, I'm open to where you can find a place to find a building. I thought that was it.
Finding a place to put it.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's a really good idea.
yeah. I mean, to me, there's a real need there that we should,
Well, we've looked around, like say, for a fire department location that would fit the needs for Cherokee Fire. It's got to be in Cherokee County. The hole down there, which Evan owns, there'd be some possibility
yeah.
of getting it in Cherokee there by by making the entrance out into the upper end into Pickens County there maybe, but it'd be a pretty extensive grading project, but, and, you know, we could consider, there'd be room enough in there for a bigger enough building for us to put our equipment in also, which would be in Cherokee County. Like I say, the old industrial park up there now, it is, you know, that one of these days, matter of fact, the outer perimeter or the road, you know, this road that's budded out down here where the gravel storage, the DOT plans in the long term is shooting on across through there, and you know, it was mixed in back when the outer perimeter was being considered and things like that. That's the reason it's spurred out like it is to go across old Highway 5, and it would go right through that industrial park area there too.
Can I go on to a second issue?
Sure.
Question? Mother, may I? Yes, I may. What would be useful, I think, for us is to lay out how much Pickens SPLOST money we have, how much Cherokee SPLOST of the current we have, how much is unspent, and then in what category, because that money is all already earmarked. It's either got to be police, roads and streets, or parks and rec. And then come up with a program where we think about the next 6-year SPLOST from Cherokee. And for example, ideally, I would think we'd want to put half of the roads and streets that Pickens is going to do and match that with half of the Cherokee. That's how I mean, the roads are obviously not identical, but I would just coming in. You know, it doesn't, we don't really have all the information here to know how to divvy up this money really well. And it's, I mean, I don't know how hard it would be to put that together, and we probably don't have the time to do this right.
Well, I think
we're not making good decisions.
I think
Well, I mean,
divided.
I came up with these numbers based upon working through with the capital improvement plan and figuring out what we had where. And that's why I had kind of come up with it, because initially I thought we didn't have a lot of parks and rec, but when I broke it down, we do in fact have a lot of parks and rec, and then Pickens is all roads and streets. So I wanted to make sure we had roads and streets for Cherokee as well, but I also wanted to make sure we had, like, for example, the community building down there. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be limited and just have that, or, you know, that's why I kind of just broke it up and made sure that it was inclusive. In other words, so I didn't want to put just buildings and then we needed equipment, you know, so I tried to break it down to make sure that I included the aspects of it, but I've used it, by saying government, it left it wide open so that it gave us an opportunity to make decisions and change as the city needs to change. Because what we see right now might not be what we need 4 or 5 years from now. And that's why I kind of worked really hard with trying to make sure that and then, you know, just a little thing like adding the word improvements at the end. In the Cherokee SPLOST 3 cycle, we did not have improvements. In the first draft of the 4th one, it didn't have improvements either, but in the final draft, it did say that. And that is really, because of that, that's been a saving grace.
Counselor, do you think the way with this is laid out is going to give us enough flexibility? You've dealt with us here for several years and have seen the problems we've had as far as spending or being able to apply this money to the needs. Do you think this is laid out in such a way that we'd be able to do that?
I do. Yes.
And the auditor also agreed, because she has challenged us on a couple of,
Oh, yeah.
so that's why I wanted her to get her input as well, and her, you know, what her thoughts were on that, so.
I think that's good.
So if you all want to vote, you approve this wording, then I can send it over to Cherokee to be added to this big fat packet right here with the rest of the city stuff. And then we'll need a final vote on that at the next meeting. The projects were that way right here on page, and this is the most up-to-date one in your binder. They do change, so if you want to take it home, take a look at it.
What page is that on here?
Nelson is, hold on, ABC's page 3. That's where ours is, and this, basically what they did was, with the exception of the emergency communication system, they took our 3 previously used categories and threw it in there so that something would be there. So what happens is if we approve this, then they'll change that wording, and then all the cities will vote to approve this, and then it goes to the Board of Commissioners in Cherokee County. They vote on it on the 18th, and then they get to take it to the state.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion if anybody wants to make a motion to approve this as our SPLOST goals.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, let me know by raising your right hand. It's unanimous, so go ahead with it, Tina.
Okay.
Okay, the new business is appoint, to vote, and a vote to approve an Americans with Disabilities Act ADA coordinator for the city. And that'll be under 7A.
There you go, Mike. Here's something I learned about. I learned at the, one of the conference that I went to, is that generally there's an ADA coordinator, which could be assumed, me because I'm here and I answer the phones, but technically it's supposed to be official. And then what I'm working on is trying to come up with a spreadsheet per se of resources. If we need translator, if we need sign language, we're supposed to compile a document like that and have that on one site. And then there is a course specially in ADA that I would like to take when it comes up, but as soon as I find out when there's a class, I'll let y'all know. Just kind of make sure that we're compliant with that as much as possible.
Okay, could somebody make a motion to appoint Tina as the ADE coordinator?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion second. All in favor, let me know by raising your right hand. Tina, you're it. Now, this is not going to be a week-long training session in.
No, it's a day class.
Well, I know it, and they usually have them around where you can pick them several different places around the state where you can take them. You may have to go to Unicoi State Park or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about going to the week that I was gone at is that I did a bunch of classes. It was just a lot of like nonstop learning, and it kind of takes your ability to do that. I did one single course for the millage rate, and I didn't realize how much more it cost when you take them just by themselves than when you take them in a group like that. So it's kind of, it's paying because I'm away longer than I want to be, but it's beneficial and cost
It
saving.
pays off. Okay, discuss and vote to approve advertising for a seasonal part-time maintenance employee. We've discussed that in the past, so if we could have a motion to approve that.
Can I discuss it first?
Certain.
The question I'd have is, when should we have advertised for this position?
2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, like the high school, not that you necessarily have to hire from the high school, but Pickens closes on end of May. They have 2 months, June, July. They're back in school in August. We haven't even put an ad out. I mean, and ideally, the ad should have been beginning of May, middle of May at the latest, for someone to make a decision to, you know, go through a process to be doing this. And this is almost late, beyond who's going to do this for 3?
I agree with you there, but one point, now let me make a point here. And
Sure.
What I would like to see us do is hire somebody that can supervise the community service workers, which are available to us from both counties all the time.
I agree with you, and I was going to add that as my second point is, there needs to be, what my note was, how will this person be used? You and I know, it's, having free labor is not always a good thing.
No,
These aren't even free, these are paid people. they need to be managed.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I didn't, when you were mentioning advertising for high school, I really want to kind of steer away from that as possible.
Okay.
I would prefer, because there's a lot of liability when you have a person that's under 18 that's still in school. Their parents could come beat us up if they get hurt, not to mention a lawsuit, And
Well, you're the one that's here all day long, so.
Can we add some Kevlar or bulletproof glass into the budget?
The point is, we need to think this through. And if you want to advertise, go ahead and advertise. I don't care who you
Well, no, I guess I
advertise to.
just kind of want to get it underway in terms of starting to see. And we can go through. I've come up with a list kind of preliminarily of what I'm looking for. Preferably someone definitely licensed, and I'm talking about having a driver's license. In an ideal world, they could operate the equipment, but then the money that we're allotting to pay them is going to be,
Think about what the mayor said on the supervision issue, though.
If we just hire, if we get somebody that's 65 or that's retired even, that wants to work, $10 an hour, and let him come in and supervise the community service workers. We've got Pickens County is sending community service workers to Fanning County, because you have to have somebody who's willing to work them and supervise them. And I've worked them and supervised them for the city. I've worked them and supervised them over the years for the county. But
Could Ricky supervise them?
but I don't think we ought to.
If he's, if there's,
He's out mowing, he's not.
The thing is
Joey had
it
the same
depends
problem.
on, we could hire someone to supervise them.
hire someone as his part-time help, but then have it to where he could also, Ricky can also supervise the crew if they come in, if they're available and he needs help at that time.
That's what we did with Joey. He basically was the
Of
supervisor.
course, and what we end up with is a co-driver lots of times.
I don't think we would necessarily have that problem with it.
We're probably not going to have it with Ricky, but now Ricky was the co-driver a lot of times with Joey. If you see the moment you see the little go-kart thing up at Tate, it's got 2 people in it, and that was Ricky and Joey. And I tried many times to get that discouraged, but you never could do a whole lot of good with that. But where if we set up the community service thing, where we had a gentleman or a lady that would take on the job of supervising the community service workers and have them trim the bushes over on Main Street and not even interfere with Ricky's schedule as far as what he had, because we're not paying anybody but the supervisor. The labor is free, and we not be able. One problem we need to have is somebody that can do it on Saturday in particular. And Ricky's off on Saturday. But there's a lot of community service workers, and you would have, a lot of times we'd have 4 or 5 or 6 that was going to show up, and you only have 2 of them or 3 of them show up. And it's a constant problem with community service workers. They don't, and I think our officer here would agree that the judge sentences them so much community service work, they ought to have to do that much community service work. And they ought to have to work during that community service work.
What we find is if they go somewhere and they get worked too hard, they try to find somewhere else to go.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. I keep blaming them for that. And of course, now you guys are just starting in Cherokee County, if y'all are not aware. Sheriff Reynolds has started a program where he's actually putting a bus, he's weeding people out of the jail now that are apparently or supposedly going to be good community service workers. And you can come up with a lot of people in the jail, like you've got 700, how many you got this right now?
Today we got 690.
690s. They got room for 15, so we need to see if we can get 15 more people in there. But anyway, we need to, he's setting up a program where I guess they've got a bus or a mini bus or one.
No, it's just, the county gave us 2 employees, and they're certified officers, so they'll take inmates and put them out in parks and recs so that they don't have to hire a bunch of parks and recs guys to take care of the place. And this deputy will supervise inmate workforce.
And, you know, if we hired a police department, we could use our police department to supervise some. But, you know, that's what, you know, Sheriff Reynolds, y'all are hoping to get, you got two sheriff's department employees which are certified officers.
Yes, sir.
And probably a minibus is gonna take them out there to, and you're hoping that you're gonna start with 2 crews, is that correct?
Yes, sir. They can supervise 5 inmates at one time, one person. So you get 5 for 1.
And that's how they're gonna cut back on their park maintenance expense down in Cherokee County by doing that.
Well, did somebody want to work with me to comprise a list, or did y'all want to, you know, get your thoughts together and give me a list of, you know, your expectations, your wants, whatever have you, and then, I mean, come up with an amount, what we're going to advertise for, and then go from there. I mean, we can always kind of basically understand that it's part-time seasonal work
Well,
and see what applications we can get in.
I don't know where I specifically well on part-time seasonal work is as somebody that can work weekends or flexible hours, somebody that's retired that can supervise.
Well, that's one of the things that was on my list definitely was the flexible hours, because I don't want someone that's gonna only wanna come in, let's say, 8 to 12 or, you know, 9 to 1, because there's times that we need people at other times. So flexible hours was one of the things that was on my checklist.
You two are talking about 2 different things, I think.
I don't think we are.
Okay, maybe you are, well, what I
I
hear you
think we're
talking about is
actually
using the,
But we possibly are there.
yeah, or another version is to just hire someone like we hired Wyatt to work for the summer to help Joe get back.
Well, no, I guess I kind of want to make sure that
Those
we
are 2
label
different
it.
things, though.
Well, that is, but if we hired somebody that's
No, I wasn't
capable of
necessarily talking about
supervising.
hiring like a Wyatt. I don't want to hire that. There's just too much of a. Wyatt was a great worker. I mean, he kicked butt. Wyatt was fabulous, but he was young and there were liabilities there. And I mean, it could have gone really bad.
Okay.
So I'm with him on hiring someone, but my point in saying part-time seasonal is if, you know, it's the dead of the winter and Ricky's looking, well, I mean, he keeps himself busy, but I don't want someone to think we're gonna keep them year-round if we don't need them year-round. That's my concern with the careful wording when I say part-time seasonal, because someone might wanna keep a job year-round, and if we don't need them, that's where it's sticky.
Well, and I don't think we need to hire anybody to guarantee them any year-round work, but we would want to hire somebody that would present themselves as being able or dependable enough to
Leadership
supervise,
skills, yeah.
supervise and community service workers. That's what we.
Is there money in the budget then to do this?
Yes, in the new budget. Well, there's,
It
yeah.
was in the old budget too, I think there's $6,000 is what I recall.
So, yes, there is money, the answer to your
Okay.
question.
Thank you.
So what do we want the ad to say? Do we want to hire somebody to supervise community service workers or somebody?
But do we want to limit it to just that? Or do we want to make sure that we have, that's one of the aspects. Like I said, why don't we just you and me want to get together, Larry, or you and me and somebody else get together so that it's not a,
Yeah, why don't we take applications? Why don't we vote to advertising for a part-time seasonal person and see what kind of applications we get.
I think that's the
We're
best thing to
capable
do.
of some supervising.
Because I think whoever you hire also needs to have the capability of working, not just of supervising, because you may not have the ability to have people come in and help. Other than that way they would still be able to.
yeah, I don't want to narrow it down to where they're just supervising. I want to make sure that they'd be willing to.
Well, they work too. If we get somebody, especially, like work, maybe somebody could work every Saturday, and we get our community service workers set up to come in, and we work 2 or 3, or, I've had as many as 5 or 6 of them come in, and, we accomplished quite a bit, at those times, but, I finally had to give it up on account of being an unpaid mayor. But,
Hey, I brought a motion up. Did we or did we not bring up?
I turned
The
it
election
down.
this fall.
If I paid it back, I would, I'd pay it back if you gave it to me. So, do we have anybody Well, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a
Taking
motion to approve,
I'll
and then
second.
add in to hire help.
Motion in a second, all in
Make
favor?
sure they got a clean driving record.
Yes.
Don't let
No
them
DUIs.
drive in front
Right, well, it's difficult to find that all the time at $10 an hour, but,
Yeah.
but at any rate, we do need to, if we hire an older guy, he's probably got a clean driver's
Yeah.
record. All right, all in favor, let me know to raise your right hand. Okay, we got 3, all against, raise your right hand. Get your right hand up. 3-1, so it's approved. Okay, we need to vote and discuss when the annual raises will go into effect.
All right, let me just, I haven't had anybody beating down my door about it, but we did, a while ago, I'd asked y'all to kind of figure out what raises we wanted to give, and Ricky had inquired because he was here 6 months, didn't get a raise at 6 months, and so he didn't know if the raise went into effect the beginning of the fiscal year or what we're doing.
It'd be my understanding from that discussion, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but it was, the raises are effective, and we voted, we approved them, and they're to take effect on July 1st.
I thought they took effect when we had like their review. I could be wrong, I thought there was like 1 year review thing.
No, I thought it was in July.
Yeah.
Well, normally the review, normally the way, from my understanding, normally the way, there's supposed to be reviews starting in March so that, that was kind of what I was trying to do back in March with bringing that up to y'all to discuss that. The
Yeah.
discussion was so that we could decide, yay or nay, what their raises were going to be, and then it would start July 1st. But if y'all want to wait,
I mean, because if that's the case, it would be retroactive. I just misunderstood. Do we do raises once a year or is it twice a year? If you've been here 6
Usually
months and
once.
asked,
Once.
then-
unless they do, there is room, from what I understand, for a merit raise, like if they do a fantabulous job, above and beyond or whatever have you. And I know that this doesn't count for me because the agreement was 6 months after I was appointed city manager, so this does not apply. This is in terms of sanitation and Ricky.
Yes,
The answer to this question is in the employee handbook. There's already policy established, and basically, and again, this is just by rough memory of it, but I'm pretty clear, just as you said, the only merit, the raises are based on the evaluations. The evaluations are, which we haven't prepared yet, you have performance standards which both parties agree to, and those are done in March. Then the raise would be the subsequent fiscal year, July 1, after the evaluations. And I guess what I would recommend is we give a copy of the employee manual to each of the council people, because this question is, I don't have my own copy, but it's in there. I'm
No,
pretty
I
sure.
think when we discussed it before, when we came up with amounts we were gonna give them.
Yeah,
In
that's how I did the
executive session,
But
budget.
that's not what the policies of the city are.
Well, the problem is there's like a gazillion versions floating around here, and I don't know what's complete and what isn't.
Well, that should be
It's
your
pretty
job,
much
is
like
to
everything.
bring all the council people, we should all have a copy, so we know what our policies are.
That's why I was asking, I don't know what,
Go ahead and have a review with him, just because I think that that's just good policy to make sure everybody's on the same page. He's doing a fantastic job, no complaints. But the raise there needs
I
to be
think
a
we
start
need
date
to,
for
in
it.
matter of fact, we'll entertain a motion to give them the raise effective July 1, if anybody wants.
I'll make a motion to make it
I'll
active that
second.
day.
Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor, let me know to raise your right hand. Okay, it's 3, and any opposed? Aye. Against 1.
Should we just ignore the city policies? I mean, that's what we're doing anymore.
We shouldn't ignore the city policies, if that's your question.
Then can I ask, can we give a copy of the handbook to all of the council so they can read what the city policies are? That's not what we said our policies are. They were adopted in.
We held a meeting to decide what the raises were gonna be.
I agree with that, But you need to follow the seat. They can't be done until you have the evaluation. You haven't done the evaluations.
You haven't done the
Evaluations are
evaluation.
supposed to be done in March. It's clearly spelled out, and then they subsequently get a raise in July.
Okay, the council has voted to make the raises effective July 1.
I do agree with Mike, that I do think we should have an evaluation, just
I don't
so,
disagree with
I think
you
it's
there.
good for the employee and it's good
And I would also like
policy in
to
general,
work
but I
on,
don't want him to be penalized as far as his raise goes by not getting it when it should come in, but I do think that it's important to have that.
Well, you just voted to blow it off.
No, I voted to make sure that he gets the money
But
when
you
he should
voted-
get it, but I do think because of everything that was going on in the city and we didn't have like the city manager established and there was, stuff just wasn't done, so, you know.
but I do want to go ahead
for
and
not
work
being
at some
done.
point in time before, work on,
I'm looking at doing the reviews this next year in the proper time frame.
and have things situated where we maybe have a review sheet that we all agree on, something
Right.
like a format, like a checklist or a, you know, change it around and go from there, and then that way that can stay in there.
That'd be an excellent idea.
Mayor, can I ask that we ask the city manager to give us a copy of the employee handbook?
Okay, I have to find a copy of the employee handbook. I have pieces
Oh,
of
he has
it.
one.
Do you have one? Okay, can you send it to me?
That I believe is the last version.
Okay.
Well, it was supposed to be updated. There's one in this building that's got all the updates on it, and it's so marked. There's one.
It's missing a couple of,
I'll send you what I have.
yeah, send me what you have, and then Miranda and I had started working, because she had gotten an assignment some time ago to kind of work on it, and then I was sitting with her because she had gotten input from other cities, and we were trying to like make adjustments, so that's something, a project, if y'all would give me your blessing, that I would like to go ahead and do that. And
But we don't
send
need
them.
to involve other cities, where you
Well, no, I'm
there
talking about-
is a handbook within this building that's got the sheets and when they were adopted and the signatures. That's there, you know, the previous council and all that's in there. And the counselor has.
I just have an electronic version. I just have a computer version. That was sent to me by Brandy at some point.
But now you got the updates on it, haven't you?
I don't know that it was updated after that point. It could have been.
Chronic did a whole series of
This was,
policies that
I thought,
added
after
to
that.
the original one.
I think this was post that, I believe.
Okay.
All right, well, if you could send that
Yeah, I
out to
believe-
me.
It'll have a date on it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I'll send it to you.
As a matter of fact, I'll get with you and we'll see if we can come up with the one that I'm just referring to.
Good.
Within the next week. Okay, we need to vote or renew the cooperation agreement to be included as part of the urban county designation for Cherokee County from January 1, 2018 to December 31st, 2020. And that means that does that mean that's who our area of planning and development, we're part of the Atlanta Commission? Is that what you're saying?
No, this is just to receive CDBG funds. And we had signed one with this back in 2008, but every 3 years it kind of has to be
Okay.
upgraded. It enables us to be able to receive those.
Okay, do we have a motion to renew the cooperation agreement to be included as part of the urban county designation of Cherokee County?
I make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. One of you want to be a second?
I'll second.
He'll be a second. All in favor, let me know, raise your right hand. It's approved.
And Larry, before you leave, I'll need you to sign off on everything.
Okay. Vote to move the work session and to have the Cherokee County Administrative public hearing and vote on Thursday, July the 17th at 7 p.m. Can all members attend that meeting
July 13th.
July the 13th at 7 p.m.?
Because I need, there's a couple of things like the final SPLOST agreement and this that we have to have to the Cherokee County Board of Commission for their meeting on the 18th. And if I looked at my June calendar, we had another week that we would have had plenty of time, but someone burst my bubble and now we're in July and so.
Yeah, then we.
And then I figured, because I don't know, if y'all want to have 3 meetings this month, I'm here.
So we move it.
Everybody understand? Okay, everybody.
Let's go.
So we're gonna vote to move it and,
Okay, I need a second, Kelsey, maybe.
I did this.
okay, second, all in favor, let me know, raise your right hand. Catch unanimous.
All right.
So we'll meet on July the 13th. All right, next we have public appearance. Anybody like to make a public appearance?
Okay then, on you. Ralph Dennis, Pickens County Progress. As you know, I guess for about the past 3 years, I've been coming here and listening. And again tonight, you postponed the decision on what to do with your police department. Why would you want to keep a police department and spend $53,250 for that department, and you're allocating in your capital improvement and proposed SPLOST budgets in 2020 to spend $35,000 for a car, for a Dodge Charger, and $42,665 in 2021 for a Tahoe?
That is,
Wait, let me finish, Mr. Mayor.
well now, let me
The
point out
expense-
that you are not a resident of the city of Nelson, so.
It says public hearing, and I represent the public as a contributing writer to the Pickens County Progress, okay? You have two very professional law enforcement agencies handling the law enforcement in the city of Nelson. Two extremely professional organizations. Why can't you take that money, and we're talking over $100,000 of your citizens' money, and put it back into the programs that you have? You're talking about sanitation. You're talking about your Parks and Rec. You've got this money in the budget. Why spend it on something that you already have that's free? You already have law enforcement. The sheriffs of both counties are mandated by state law that they have to enforce the laws in your city. It's free. And I can guarantee you, as a former law enforcement officer, you have two extremely professional organizations that are taking care of your law enforcement in the city. Why do you need one individual simply to be here? That one individual can't do everything that both of those departments can for you. Why spend the money? And again tonight, you postpone that decision for another 4 months, 5 months, when you could have sat back and said, this is what we're going to do, we're going to do away with it, we're going to take that money and we're going to allocate it elsewhere. That's the question that I would ask on behalf of the citizens and the readers of the Pickens County Progress.
I would say honestly that I voted to postpone it because I would say right now the mayor's the tiebreaker, and I don't think that it would pass to not have a police department right now. So I would rather have a full council than have.
But now, Ralph,
That's a good reason.
let me tell you something else. The capital improvement budget, you're looking at expenditures that's scheduled out into 20 and 21. That's what a capital improvement budget is. We can change it at any time. We're not in any, doesn't have any bearing whatsoever.
But it's listed, Mr.
It's-
Mayor, as
it's in
SPLOST funds. As SPLOST funds, you have repeatedly stated, as the city manager has stated over and over, in years past, you have so narrowly defined what you're going to spend your SPLOST money on that you are restricted. Therefore, if you turn this proposed SPLOST program in and you've got $35,000 for a Dodge Charger,
to buy those vehicles.
what are you going to? How are you going to get around?
Would you address this issue?
What's the question specifically?
He's saying that since we've got those items in our capital improvement budget for 20 and 21, that we can't change it.
If you don't spend, this is for, no, you can change your capital improvement budget any time.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's your plan.
What-
That's your plan.
What I'm reading, across the top, the heading says City of Nelson, Georgia for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018. Capital Improvement Plan and Proposed Operating Budget, SPLOST funds, listed under 2020 Public Safety Vehicle Equipment. It's listed under SPLOST Cherokee
And I
number
would
4.
suppose that by the year 2020, if.
How do you go about, my question is, how do you go about redesignating that money?
Because if we have
The SPLOST,
a police
the SPLOST
department,
designation didn't require it to be spent that way. The city said that's how.
that's what we were gonna do.
They can change it.
From what the auditor has been saying,
No, no.
once it's designated in
Not
that
by the
area, it
city,
has to
no.
be done.
The SPLOST categorization for that was public safety vehicles and equipment.
We had brought.
That's all that SPLOST category was. This is the city's plan on how to spend that money, which they can spend
Okay.
it within that
We can
category,
change it
how they desire.
any way we choose to
Okay.
do it.
I would like to say too, that I do agree with you as far as the counties go. Frank Reynolds has called me, he's a friend of my husband's, about just to see how Cherokee County's doing being here. I've seen Dickens, cars through here a good bit. I think we need more hearing from the public so that people understand. My concern is that there's a history in this city of the police chief being bullied by former council members, and it continues to go on. It's kind of used for, for political reasons, and the hours that the police department, that the officer works is not enough to do something that the county couldn't do, having them here instead of us paying some money.
And you made the comment also that it becomes a hopping point,
But that's all it is.
a training station for somebody to continue.
What's
to
wrong
move
with
on.
that?
What's wrong with it is it's constant.
You're wasting the taxpayers' money,
You're
Mr.
wasting
Mayor.
the money.
My time's
If you're
up.
gonna do it,
Okay.
then you have a large budget to back it.
Yeah.
You pay somebody what they're worth.
Yes, Lamar?
Everybody take a deep breath after that real rush there. Mine is much more mundane. But, okay, Lamar Kellett, 1005 Laurel Lake Drive, Nelson. Couple things I'm going to make comments about. I do appreciate, my one-trick pony has been trying to get rid of dilapidated buildings, which is a perfectly good word. It's the word that's used in the ordinance that Jeff himself formulated. So you can use dilapidated without hurting anybody's feelings. It's just the way it is when you describe a building that's vacant and it's generally in very bad repair. So dilapidated is a perfectly good word. These discussions about SPLOST, of whether you're going to use it for what you say you're going to use it or whatever, we as voters in Cherokee County are going to be voting on what is said to be justified the SPLOST. And if a part of that is Nelson saying that we're going to have public safety, i.e. police, expenditures in that SPLOST, that's why the people that are up in here may or may not be wanting to vote for SPLOST. So if we as a council can't figure out whether we're going to have police or not, it's an impact when we vote on SPLOST and then we turn around and don't even use if we decide not to have police. So my point is the same as Ralph. We've been talking about this for a year, at least. I think Mark left about this time last year.
August.
So I'm giving you bad marks. In my opinion, it's something that you could have figured out and had this all behind us, so that we could have proceeded with our budgeting and whatever. Because I've lived here over 20 years now, and the quality of police work that we get here is very spotty. Some are good, a lot are not so good. And they're on duty, a lot of them have set their own hours. We don't know when they're here, or whether they're even here or not. So, you know, if we're thinking that just hiring one guy is gonna make this a safe city, you know, we're dreaming. We've gotta have a lot more than that. Because the second one back lived over near Calhoun.
I guess you were in office at that time, but, you know, I wouldn't propose that we ever get into that type of situation again.
And now that we've, once again, not made a decision, we have absolutely no code enforcement plan at all. All we have is what the charter calls for, which says the mayor is the point man on that, and he just hasn't performed. So I don't know what we're going to accomplish for the next 6 months.
I have a question for you, since you have lived here for a long time. When the officers were here, how effective were they as far as code enforcement went? I know Mark had a hesitancy with it because the city owned buildings that were not up to par. But other than that, how did other officers handle it?
On a scale of 10, 2.
That's kind of what I thought.
Or a
That's what I'm
minus
asking.
1. The only time we ever had any participation really in that area was when one of the council people took it on to see that something happened. And that council person personally directed the policeman to issue citations and carry it through to the court. And Jeff may remember back around 2011, we had a lot of activity in that area. And the officer came to the court well prepared, he had photographs, he has records of when he did summons, and it was a brief period when we actually accomplished something.
Thank you,
And
Mark.
one other thing.
Sure.
Excuse me, I need a taste of water.
Lamar, there's a bottle of water under the podium.
Oh,
I try to always keep one up there for speakers. And if there's more than speakers, you get to share.
excuse me.
You can have my bottle. Yeah.
Been around long, been out back watching.
Feel like Mark.
Especially if you can see it.
During the season of doing the budget and kind of trying to track along what was going on, I did read the letter from County Manager Jerry Cooper, and I was pretty impressed with some of the things that we haven't been doing, and one in particular, that SPLOST program requires that we keep a running record on every SPLOST project. And that has to be advertised in our authorized newspaper by the end of December, I believe it is, where you have to specify what your SPLOST projects are, how well you've done, what your accomplishments are, you know, how much money you spent, how much you got left. And this is to be transparent so that people who pay into that SPLOST will have a general idea where the money's going. Because otherwise, I couldn't tell you from even when I come to meetings, I can't tell you what was accomplished last year out of what should have been accomplished. So I think we need to reread that. When you get your personnel manual, I highly recommend that everybody get a copy of the SPLOST manual. There's a good one on the GMA site, and it's in the Georgia code. It's almost verbatim, but it's almost a little more for dummies. If you get it from the GMA site, it gets some sidebars, and it'll tell you just exactly the kind of things you have to go through in running a SPLOST program in order to be legal. So I recommend that also be added to the list of things for each of the council people and the attorney's primary job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
can I ask the city manager to make copies of the GMA SPLOST manual that you're referring to, and along with the capital of the
I think that's
personnel?
about 30 or 40 pages. I've read it, there's a copy of it here in the,
Yeah, I just got the most recent updated one. I did that one and the one that they do for the county managers as well, but the GMA is really good. It breaks it down, so I can make everybody a copy. It's not so bad if you do it double-sided.
okay.
Thank you.
All righty, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to
I'll
adjourn.
second.
Got a motion second, all in favor, raise your right hand. We're adjourned.